Welcome back to Dave Knows Wrestling. Are we all just a bunch of marks? Well, if you ask certain old school wrestling type of people, they're gonna say, yeah, we all are. Me, you, even the wrestlers themselves. All just a bunch of marks. It doesn't matter. If you're a wrestling fan, you obviously drink the Kool-Aid and are therefore a mark. Because we will just believe anything and we'll get invested in anything, and that is what makes us a mark. However, is that necessarily a bad thing? Well, that's the topic of today's episode, because today we're gonna rock out as we mark out, because Dave knows marks. So to start, let's look into the origins of what a mark actually is. The term mark in wrestling has a lot to do with the way the term mark was used when it came to scamming people. That's right, hustling, grifting, call it what you will. That's where we get the term mark from. Now back in those days, a mark was the target of a scam. The guy you were looking to con out of his money was the mark. That's who you were marking as the victim of your grift. And when it came to wrestling, it was exactly the same way. To be a professional wrestler, you needed to make money. Now, just one of the reasons why professional wrestling as we know it today is fake or predetermined comes from the traveling circus. Back then, carnival circuses, they would go from town to town and put on a show and then leave and pack up and go to the next one. And one of their attractions was wrestling. They would have their big star strongman wrestler, and they would go from town to town challenging the local townspeople to see if anyone could actually beat him. The carnival barker would actually antagonize the crowd and say, nobody in this podunk, backwards, hillbilly town could possibly beat our strong man. He is trained in all the best forms of wrestling and grappling from all across the world, and no one could ever possibly defeat him, and constantly egg the crowd on. He would even go as far to say, I'll wager any amount of money that our man could definitely beat anybody in this pathetic, dinky little town. And that would get the people's goat, and they would start nominating one of their heroes, usually a local football star or the town tough guy. And that guy would go against the strongman, only to lose. And then the circus would collect all the townspeople's money. Only trick is, the local hero was actually in on it the whole time. He took a dive. Sure, occasionally the local hero would actually try to double cross the circus, but the strongman could actually hold his own. That was the trick of the matter. But usually they would approach the local tough guy before the event ever started and cut him in on the deal. So all the townspeople, all the fans watching the wrestling match, they were all marks. They all fell for it hook, line, and sinker, believing that this was a legitimate wrestling contest and their money now goes to the promoter. And that's how the term mark started coming around. But I know what you're thinking, today is different, isn't it? We all know wrestling's fake, so we can't be marks, right? Well, if you ask the right person, they're gonna tell you no. Nothing's changed. Because at the end of the day, just like Fast Eddie Felsen said, the one who's the best is the one who has the most. Because if you've ever paid to see a live show, if you ever paid for a pay-per-view, bought wrestling paraphernalia, gotten the network for $9.99, or even just bought an action figure, guess what? You're a mark, because they took your money. The promoter found a way to get you to give them your cash. And that's all there is to it, simple as that. And if you look at it that way, sure, that could be pessimistic, that could be depressing, but it doesn't have to be. Maybe we are all a bunch of marks, but how is that different from anything else? We give money to things all the time. It's the reason why we make money. That's how consumerism and capitalism work. Does that mean when you go to see the new Avengers movie, you're a mark for Marvel? Sure, but so what? You still got something out of the deal. If you go to see your favorite concert, are you a mark for that band? Why not? Does it matter? The bigger question is, how deep does this scam actually go? Well, pretty deep. Let's say you have a promoter like Vince McMahon, and you have a whole army of these big, tough, strong, threatening guys. And even though those guys could probably eat you if they wanted to, you've somehow convinced them to wear colorful tights and fringes and pretend to be a barber or a tugboat or something. You ask me, that's a pretty good scam. And on top of that, these guys are putting their bodies on the line, suffering all kinds of debilitating injuries, damaged knees, damaged necks. They are literally breaking their backs for you. And after all that, you still don't book them to win the title that has no actual intrinsic value by itself. You tell them it's because they're not working hard enough. They're not reaching for that brass ring. Now that is a pretty good scam. I mean, come on, that's pretty good. That's some cult leader type stuff. And while as bad as you might feel for those guys are the ones convincing you to hand over your money. Whoa, it seems like we are all just being played, but that's what wrestling is. I mean, you're gonna spend your money on something, right? We all care about it, all right? I've donated tons of money to the cause without even really understanding why sometimes. There are plenty of wrestling games I pre-ordered at a general principle that, in hindsight, I really didn't need. Pre-order to get the Terminator in 2K? What was I thinking? Now, with the advent of the internet, it does seem that the business is more exposed, right? So we are definitely smarter wrestling fans than we ever were. But just because you're a mark doesn't mean you're not smart. Some people have said that the promoters are actually using the internet to work against us. For everything that we do know that goes on behind the scenes, we don't really have any verification to know if any of it is real or legitimate. Do we? Whoa. This show's on the internet. Mind blow. This is turning into some Mulder and Scully type of conspiracy, isn't it? Everything could be propaganda. We have no way of knowing. We hear that Jericho and Goldberg got into a fight backstage, and that makes us care about their feud more. But did that really even happen? We all know about the Montreal Screwjob, especially if you've seen an earlier episode of this show. But what guarantee do we have that that was legitimate? We don't. In fact, there's tons of people on the internet who actually think the whole thing was one huge work. It does seem awfully coincidental that they were filming a documentary about Brett right as that happened. But that doesn't mean that the Screwjob was a work. But we don't really know that it wasn't either. And it's not just that. There are tons of things that happened that we have no way of knowing the reality of the situation. Take the plane ride from hell. Unless you were on that plane, no one really knows what happened there. Save a title card, you don't know, you weren't on the plane. You're not even real. But then again, the whole point of this video is trying to figure out what's real and not, so I guess good for you. Maybe Mr. Perfect really just wanted to show up for the 2002 Royal Rumble, and after public interest demanded that he come back just to get more of our money, they wanted to send him off in a cool way and come up with a reason why he's gonna leave TV. Maybe that's why. Or maybe whatever happened on that plane ride that we've heard is actually true. And unfortunately, that's why he left the company. We don't know, and we'll never know. That's the beauty of it. The internet has fueled more and more of a buzz, more of an interest, and it allowed all of us wrestling fans to feel like we were more part of the process, that we had more of a say. For all we know, Matt and Lita just broke up, and there was no Edge incident at all. And let's be real here, version 1 is definitely not beyond using the internet to his advantage. I mean, you've checked out the final deletion, haven't you? After the hide your wives, it's Edge moment, Matt Hardy became more interesting than he ever had been. And when you look at it, at that time, Matt was definitely more interesting than his crazy eccentric brother jumping off of ladders, wasn't he? Maybe that was the goal all along. It was a way to put Matt Hardy over, and we all fell for it. There's so many examples of something that happened that we all believe to be real that made a wrestler or a storyline way more interesting and made us more invested. And for all we know, that was the intended purpose. That is exactly how they got this whole storyline over. But I can't stress enough, that may not be bad. So wrestling's cooler now, so we believe in it again. It's kind of like that Magic, Secrets Revealed guy, Valentino, who exposed all the magician's secrets. It got people talking about magic again. Before Harry Potter, that was the most interesting magic has been in a really long time. And after that, we got David Blaine. Maybe wrestling has been so progressive, they were able to see the writing on the walls before it even happened. And since it's a business run by a bunch of scam artists, they knew exactly how to get us where they wanted us. They knew exactly what to do to dig in our pockets. Even the X symbol. Maybe this isn't real. Maybe this is how they sell us to believe a guy really is tough. If you see the referee throwing up the X, maybe the guy's fine. But when we see him finish the match anyway, we say, that's a tough dude. I mean, we already know that Roman Reigns can beat up the Big Show 100 times over. It doesn't make us think he's any more tough or threatening than he was. But if we see something that we believe to be a legitimate injury, and then the guy comes back right away, maybe he's tougher than we thought. Or maybe it's all a work. But what do you guys think? Are we all just a bunch of marks? And is that necessarily a bad thing? And are there any particular behind the scenes incidences that you think are just a work? Let me know in the comments and share this video with your friends. Find out what they think about the situation. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. This has been Dave Knows. Yeah, thanks for watching. That's my video on marks. If we are just a bunch of marks, oh well, I definitely given my money away to worse things than professional wrestling, so that's not saying I haven't contributed to some professional wrestling things that I wish I didn't. If I could take some of that money back, I would do it in a heartbeat. But hey, what are you gonna do, right? Why regret anything? If you like this video, I do have some other videos out there. Feel free to check them out. We have one on racism in wrestling. We also have another cool one about chain wrestling. If you don't know what chain wrestling is, definitely check that one out. It's pretty important as far as I'm concerned, especially when it comes to understanding wrestling. And as long as it's not part of the whole cabal conspiracy thing, then it's awesome because it's, real and we can actually, figure this out. But, who knows? Big conspiracy, we don't know. Like, share, subscribe, and thank you again for watching. This has been Dave Knows, and you guys are awesome.